For those of you not familiar with CEED, it is the Center for Entrepreneurship, Education, and Development. We are a nonprofit organization that offers a wide variety of programs and funding that supports local entrepreneurs. I would like to extend an enormous thank you to Fatima Barrera, founder of Barrera Marketing, for being up here with us today. Barrera Marketing empowers service businesses to grow sustainably through client-centric strategies. And with over 25 years in marketing, customer experience, and client retention, Fatima has worked with big names such as Manulife, Canada Life, Carlson Marketing, and Canadian Tire Bank. Now, Fatima is applying her knowledge to guide entrepreneurs towards profitable and sustainable growth. In this workshop, you'll learn how to grow your business steadily by focusing on keeping your current clients happy rather than always chasing new leads. We'll show you how to create great client experiences and listen to feedback, and how listening to feedback can lead to higher profits and more reliable growth. You'll get practical tips on how to keep clients longer, lower your costs, and make your business more successful in the long run by focusing on client retention. Without further ado, I'll hand it off to Fatima to get us started.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Calvin, and thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm so excited to see some familiar faces and getting to meet a few new faces as well. Just before we get started, and before I introduce myself, and I thank you, Calvin, for introducing me, so I may not have to go through that over again, but if you could just let me know where you're coming from and what your business is, because I think that would be really helpful for me to understand where you're coming from. That would be amazing. But let me get started to let you know what I want to do with this, with our session and with our time together. So by the end of the session, I'd like you to understand what's the right balance between client acquisition and client retention, because I think there's so much focus on acquisition these days that the retention sort of gets overlooked. And I want to ensure that when you're building your business, that retention is part of your strategy. And again, the reason why I do like to focus on that is because you're able to build businesses sustainably and long term by focusing on retention. Like the presentation's about, it's growing revenue with ease and less expense. And I want to be able to provide that to you by the end of the session. So let me just have a look at the chat here. Perfect. Hi, Carol. Nice to see you. All right, so let's get going. So let me just, okay. So in today's session, what I want to do is I want to be able to get you to see a different perspective of your business growth. So many of you, or hopefully not too many of you, have been spending money on ineffective tactics and not getting any results. So spending all this money on, SEO websites, which are all important, but if you're spending it and not getting results, that's something we want to look at with some of these retention strategies. Your company isn't growing. That's another thing that you may see. Let's look at ways that we can actually grow your company, not necessarily just through acquisition. If you see revenue declining, that's another thing that if you're experiencing that, I'm glad you're here, because the presentation is for you and it's for small business owners that are experiencing these issues. Limited budget, with everything getting really expensive these days, I think it's more important than ever to really look at how you're spending that budget. And so after this session, I hope that you have a clearer understanding as to how you can balance the two, acquisition and retention, for sustainable growth. So Calvin, thank you for introducing me. Like you said, I have 20 years of marketing experience in working with big brands in Canada, so Manulife, Canada Life, Carlson Marketing, really always on the marketing side and focusing on customer improvements, customer-focused products, relationship management. So everything that I've learned in all those 20 years, I'm bringing into helping business owners these days. And one of the things that the reason I actually started my business was I was in the 9-to-5 and wanted to do something different to give back to the community, give back to small business owners. And when I started with a small marketing boutique agency. So helping businesses be more visible with their businesses. So I started focusing on tactics, which I think a lot of business owners do when they first start. And instead of doing that, now what I'm doing now is focusing really on the strategy, focusing on client experience and retention. And the reason I'm really passionate about doing that now and helping business owners with that these days is simply because I've talked to so many business owners that have spent thousands and thousands of dollars on marketing, and then they're not seeing any results. Just a couple of examples. I spoke to one business owner who spent, I believe, $8,000 on Facebook ads and Google ads, and got one sale, which was equivalent to, I think, $100. So again, all these stories that I've heard over and over again from business owners, I felt compelled to do something to give back and to help them be more strategic around that growth. So this is why I'm now helping small business owners really look at what that balance is so that they could grow sustainably and really understand. Just the way I look at it is like an iceberg. You see all the tactical things at the top, and at the very bottom you have the foundational. And that foundational is, I think, what many times gets missed and bypassed. So I want to be able to give that back and just show you a different way, not necessarily, it's a better way. It's just a different way to look at it. And it may be something that would be great for your business, but I want to be able to give you the opportunity to see that. So before we get it started, I want to talk about retention and acquisition, just what the difference is. But ultimately, at the end of it, both of them are important for growth, and both of them are focused on the customer. So regardless of whether you focus on one or the other, the ultimate goal is the same. You want to grow and you want to be able to be customer focused. So just quickly, client acquisition is really about attracting new clients through outreach, marketing, networking, sales, things like that. And the purpose of that is really to convert your prospects into paying clients. Client retention, on the other hand, is what keeps your customers coming back. They keep them satisfied, keep them loyal, so your business can grow sustainably. And so what happens there is you're building that trust, you're building that relationship, and you're increasing that lifetime value for your business. Before I move on here, I just want to ask you, what are you currently doing right now for your business? Are you focusing more on acquisition, or are you focusing more on retention? I'd love to know that, just to get a sense of the group and see where everybody's at. Yeah. Okay. I don't see anything, but if anything comes up later, I'd be happy to see where you're at. Early stages of my business, so acquisition. Yes. And it is super important. One of the things, though, Carol, that I want to be able to connect with let business owners see is that although retention is more of a strategy that it focuses on later business or once your business is more established, it's something that you want to be able to think about at least when you're first starting, because just keep in mind you're spending all this time and money bringing in these first few customers, but then what happens is they leave because there's no retention strategy built in. So it's one of those things where it's better to think about it sooner rather than later, because then you're building that culture where you're focusing on that customer from a different perspective. Just going through the comments. All right, yes. Perfect. So mostly acquisition, and I get that with small businesses, and when you're first starting out, that's definitely important. So we will touch on that as well. All right. So now let's just go through the differences between acquisition and retention. So this is just a quick chart to show you the differences. And one of the things that I'm highlighting, and I've put the image in there because it's really impactful, and I think it's really important to understand that with the costs of acquisition versus retention. So the cost for acquisition is much higher, retention is much lower, and as you can see in the image, it's 5 to 7 times more expensive to acquire a new client than it does to keep a current one. So just always keep that in mind, because that's super important. Again, if you have a limited budget, you want to be able to allocate that budget effectively. Time frame with acquisition, the short-term gains. So everything is immediate. You get these gains quickly, you get the leads quickly, you get that impact right away. Whereas with retention, it's a longer-term game. It's a long-term strategy. So that's one of the things that there's the differentiator between the two. And the focus on acquisition is growth and visibility. So like Carol and a few others have said, they're at the starting point of their business. So that's when it's more important. With retention, it's once you already have clients that you want to be able to keep them. You want to be able to keep building that relationship with them. And the impact on revenue with acquisition, it's completely immediate. Like I said, you're paying for an ad, you're getting the lead right away, and potentially that lead turns into a client. And with retention, it's more predictable because you could start building strategies in place to be able to get some revenue coming in more consistently. All right. Okay. So now the pros and cons for acquisition versus retention, and we may have already touched on it in the previous slide, but the pros for acquisition is you get more clients much quicker, and it increases your market share. On the negative side, it's much more expensive, and there's a risk of losing current clients. And the risk of losing clients is because you're neglecting them, or you may not be putting as much attention to them as you are to getting new clients. So again, going back to that balance, there is that balance that you have to have both. Retention. With retention, definitely it's much cheaper. There's more predictable revenue because you can control that a bit more. Stronger relationships. You're building on relationships as opposed to with acquisitions. Sometimes it could be a little bit more transactional. So those are some words that we use a lot, is either it's a transaction or it's a relationship. And where is it that you want to focus your business on? With that growth, how do you want to grow your business? And what I mean by transactional versus relationship is with transactional, if you have somebody coming in and buying one service from you, they're buying that one service, you're delivering that one service, and then that's it, they're gone, they go somewhere else. Even though you may have other services that you could provide to them, they still come in for that one service and then they leave. Whereas with retention, you're focusing on what does this long-term look like for this client? This client's coming in the door. They now trust you. Now you could actually sell them more. They'll actually buy more from you, and they have a great experience with you. They'll actually refer you to others as well. So it's super important to keep that in mind, that transactional versus that relationship. And the cons for retention is definitely slower to grow. So it's more, like I said before, it's a long-term game, but it's definitely something that's much more sustainable over time. Does anybody have any questions before I go on? I just want to make sure there's something, if there's anything in the chat. Yes, Carol. So yeah, what you're saying is you want to keep them and refer them. And that's exactly what this is all about, is focusing on retention so that you can achieve that. And so why do some businesses choose to focus on acquisition? We've said it already, it's to grow and to scale. So if you're starting a new business, or you're trying to get into new markets, or you have a new product, you want to be able to grow through acquisition. If there's competitive pressure in the market, you also want to try and get as many clients as possible, and also to build brand awareness. Because if people don't know that you exist, there has to be a way for them to find out how you're out there and what you do. So why focus now on retention? Like we said, lower cost, that's definitely a great reason to focus on retention. It builds that trust and loyalty. It drives referrals and repeat business. So those customers are buying more from you, they're staying longer with you, and ultimately with all that, it increases profitability. And I have a stat here from Bain & Company that really, really resonates with what I'm trying to say, is that you have, with just a small increase of 5% in retention, that can have major boosts in profitability. 25, and I know that range is very, very big, but it really does depend on a lot of variables: how much you're charging, how frequently they come to buy from you. So there's a lot of things that go in there, but the point is that if you make a small change in retention, it can really significantly impact your profits. So now that we've talked about acquisition and retention, now we want to find what is the right balance for your business, because ultimately that's what it's about. It's you want to do both because you need both. It's just, what is that right balance for you and for your business? So when do you want to prioritize acquisition? Again, when you're launching a new product, when you're entering a new market, and also if you have a bigger budget, that's when you want to focus on acquisition. When you want to focus on retention, on the other hand, is if you have tight budgets. If you don't have a lot, let's try and focus a little bit more on retention, because you want to keep those clients that you've attracted. You want to look at predictable growth as well. And if you already have a solid client base, that's also when you want to focus on those customers, because you have those customers, you don't want to neglect them. You want to nurture them. You want to have them there so that they can, so you could provide more service for them. You could serve them for a longer term, for a longer period of time. Does anybody have any questions on this before I move forward? Okay. All right. So some of the key strategies that we typically use to drive those results is just consistent quality. Like you don't want to go somewhere where, one day you experience one thing, the next day it's something else, and another day is something else. You want to be able to have that consistency in that quality because that's what keeps clients coming back. Personalization is big as well. Ultimately, you as a customer, and put yourself in position, when I'm talking about these situations, put yourself in these situations to see how important it is for you as a consumer. So personalization, you don't want to go into a business or work with someone who just treats you like a number. You want to be able to feel like you're valued, like your business matters. Having clear communication, like the follow-ups are important. You want to be able to communicate with them. You want to be able to understand both ways. Onboarding, for example, is a great example of that clear communication. When a client comes on board, what is it that they're expecting from you? What is it that you expect from them? So that clear communication is what's ultimately going to build that trust between the two, and that's what's going to eventually lead to those long-lasting relationships. Client feedback for me is probably the most important thing. I focus on doing client interviews as well, just to go deeper in understanding what clients' real needs and desires are. But ultimately, client feedback is your clients are telling you what they like about you, what they may not like about you, where they're having maybe some challenges. And if you're open to that feedback loop and getting that information from them, it's going to work wonders for your business because they're actually giving you information, and that information is gold to be able to build your business. Like, for example, if somebody comes to you and says, I bought this and I expected this, but I got this. Now you know that there's some opportunities and some gaps there that you can actually, do something about. But if you have that, and what ends up happening is if they don't tell you that, if they don't care enough to tell you, they're just going to go somewhere else and they're silently going to leave. And that's not what you want. You want to understand, you want to be more proactive than reactive when it comes to your customers. You want to be able to proactively understand what it is that they need so that you can deliver on that. So the post-purchase experience is really once a customer comes in the door, once that customer comes in the door, that's just the beginning of the journey with this customer. It's not the end. And I think a lot of people see it as, you've acquired a client and then that's it. You move on to acquiring more clients, which is not the best case scenario. What you want to do is once they come in, you want to be able to nurture that client. You want to be able to provide them the value that they expected from you in the first place. And one of the other ways that you could do is through loyalty rewards. Basically, you want to treat all your customers like VIP, like they're really super valuable to you. And I got a comment here. So the guys at Man-Made are excellent at this from a retail point of view. And yeah, and Lynn, I don't know if you want to come on online, but if you want to share an experience that you've had, like what makes it excellent? Because one of the things too is if a customer has a really excellent experience, they're telling 3 people. If you have a bad experience, you're telling a lot more people. I think the stat is 11. You're telling 11 people if it's a bad experience. So you want to make sure that you're not delivering negative experiences to your clients because that's what's actually going to get out there more quickly than the good experiences. I don't know, Lynn, did you want to share with the group? If not, that's okay.
Yeah, sure. I came across this company. My husband's a big fan, and I just ordered some stuff for him online. It was incredible. It's such a good customer experience. They were friendly. They follow up immediately. The communication is incredible. It's totally personalized. They're not aggressive in their follow-up, but they drop in once you've bought something from them, they drop in little reminders of any special deals they're having. Every single email you receive is a little personalized video from the guys who own the company, and it just makes you feel like you're a special customer. I think they're doing an awesome job, and I've just pre-ordered again, so it's working.
Yes, absolutely. And you see that, right? I mean, when you talk about it, you light up too, because it's an experience that you don't get from other retailers. You know, there's so much out there where there's a lot of businesses that they say they're client focused, but then they don't deliver on it. And then there's that inconsistency. So are you customer centric or are you not? So it's about putting those actions in place and actually doing it, not just, it goes beyond just saying that you're customer focused. So thank you, Lynn, for sharing. Appreciate that. And anybody have a bad experience? Because I'm sure that there's a lot of bad experiences out there because with bad experiences, you're telling other people. Like for example, I went to a lawyer. I needed a lawyer for my sister, and she had to have surgery, so she wanted to get a will in place before anything happened. She was just being very cautious. So I called one lawyer. They connected with me right away. Like within a day, they were able to do everything within 3 days. So the other lawyer that I called didn't call me back until the day of the surgery. So my sister was in surgery, which was about a week later. And just again, it's just going back to all these small things. So this is just connecting and answering the phone and calling customers back. It's a lost lead ultimately. And then if it's a bad experience, it's not something that you want to, it's not something that you're going to refer anybody to. Like I'm not referring anybody to that lawyer, but I will to the other because they were responsive, they were professional, they provided me exactly what I was looking for. And that's the difference in that customer experience. And a lot of times it's just a small thing. It's just a small thing. Punita, I don't know if I provided examples enough for you. Let me know if you want something else. But I do have actually, I do have a download that I will provide the link in the URL after I'm done so that you could download that. And it does give you some more examples, concrete examples around what you can do, some of the strategies, why they work, and some of the things that you could do to implement in your business. So hopefully that will be helpful when you do get that. And so what I want to do now is I want to go through, now that I've talked more technical about retention and acquisition, I want to talk a little bit about a case study. And this is a recent case study of someone I worked with recently, or I'm still working with her for a paralegal service out here in Ontario, which is where I am. So let me just tell you her journey. So she started off coming to me when she first started her business just in May. She just started in May. And obviously similar to a lot of you ladies on, or everybody on the call today, is you're looking to grow your business because you may be in a position where you're just starting out and you need to get those leads coming through. And she had a horrible marketing experience, like I mentioned before, with an agency for her first business. So she spent, I think she mentioned it was about $10,000 where she spent on doing her website, her SEO, and a few other things, and didn't get any orders. She got 0 results. And ultimately she had to close down her business after just 2 years. So when we first got together, we talked about how I can help her with looking at it from a more customer focused lens. And she embraced that new approach. So what we did was we worked together to try and figure out, well, what can we do for your business to grow that business without having to rely heavily on client acquisition and spending on that. So what we did is we worked on, her journey was we worked on her, we did some foundational work. So with that foundational work, what we did was we really looked at her business, where she wanted to take her business, what her goals were, what her mission for her business was, and her principles, her values, like all that, because it ultimately all comes back to the business owner as to where you want to go. What was her direction? So once we had that direction, we also looked at some of the foundational things. We looked at her branding, updated some of her branding to make sure it was consistent throughout. And we also did some deep dive into her business. We also did a deep dive into her competitors. So what were her competitors doing and not doing? So we looked at what are some of the gaps and opportunities that we can actually leverage in her business that other paralegals were not doing in the business in Ontario. So that's where she's based. So we looked at that and really dissected that to really understand who her audience was. because ultimately we had to update the website and make it and optimize her SEO as well as her Google listing. So we optimized everything to make sure it was aligned with who her clients were, what the pain point was that she was solving for. And once we did that, and we were all super clear on who her audience was, we updated the content of the website. We ensured that all the keywords were appropriate. And finally, the last thing that we did was we really enhanced that customer experience. So based on her values and based on, what she wanted to do with her business, she was really focused on building a business that was foundationally based on trust, based on authenticity, based on providing the absolute best possible experience. So she was a paralegal working for a bigger law firm. And so she already had experience with clients. And one of the things that she noticed it was quite transactional. Client would come in, they would provide the service, and then that was it. There was no that human and that human element was missing with a lot of the businesses that she worked with or lawyers that she worked with. So that's one of the things that she implemented in her business, just to really get that in there and really just providing that feedback loop, like I said before, is really understanding what was important to clients. How were they finding her? Because that's one of the key things that I would recommend anybody do is when you get a new client, how do they find you? If they found you through Google, you want to know that, because if you find that they found you through Google, what are they searching for? Now you know, and you have all these insights that you can actually use to continue to enhance your business. So that's, again, it's really about being open. And what she also finds a lot is with the business she's in, she's a local business. So a lot of them are looking for a paralegal in Mississauga, which is where she's from. And once they find her, they call her, but they're also calling others. I mean, it's a very competitive environment. And so what she finds is she talks to them, she's empathetic with them, she understands the case, she gives them, some sort of guidance. And then once she does that, they usually say, you know what, it's great, but I'm going to talk to other paralegals, which a lot of them tend to do that. But what happens is all of them come back because they see how she is treating them compared to how they're being treated by others. And in some cases, they don't even answer the phone. So that's one of the things that she implemented, is just really ensuring that she's answering the phone and having that one-on-one contact with all her clients. And I've got all the details here, but the results of what she's achieved was all her growth has been organic. She spent nothing up until this point on ads. She has done it all through either Google or referrals. She has been working together with me. We've at 10x her ROI. So what she spent is she's getting it back 10 times. And she's now built a steady referral source. So those leads that she's getting through Google are not just coming in, they're actually referring other people as well. And like I said before, the clients who leave immediately return because they see the level of service and the level of commitment that she's providing to them. And at this point, we're still working together, but we're now using like any new insights that we're getting to remain competitive. And we're tracking and listening to clients just to make sure that her business continuously is growing. So in her case, she's getting all these referrals. So now one of the questions I want to ask you is, can you imagine if you're starting to get referrals that you need a waiting list? I mean, that would be a fantastic problem to have, that you have all these clients. And she's at the point right now where it's just her, but she's looking to build a team because she's now getting all these clients and leads coming in. And again, that customer experience, that customer touch really, really makes a difference in your business. And it's one of those things that I'm just saying, yes, we need acquisition, but it's also really important to really focus on that customer and really provide that level of service that they expect from in this case here with the paralegal service. You expect somebody to listen to you, to understand you, and not just sort of like be an order taker where you're just taking information and then off you go, right? So one of the things how we can work together, if you want to work together to help you build that, figure out what that balance is for you, is either doing a strategy session, which is really just 1 hour, to figure out what is your one obstacle that you might be having trouble getting through, and just really looking at it from a different perspective. Because a lot of times you're so close to the business that you may miss a lot of things. And just having somebody see it from a completely different lens, like looking at what are some of the low-hanging fruit that you could take advantage of right away without having to spend a lot of money. Then we offer a strategic growth plan, which is more intense. It's really going in, looking at your competitors, looking at what you're doing, looking at the process from the time your lead becomes a customer. What is it that they're going through? What are some of the gaps and opportunities that we can fill so that we can provide that better customer experience? And lastly, we also do client interviews, and it's really going deeper into understanding why clients buy. Because I think with all the data out there, we know what the customer is doing and we know what they're buying or not buying, but we don't know the why behind it. So with client interviews, we're really trying to understand, well, what's the why behind it? And that's where you start to see what you hadn't seen before. And that's what's actually going to get you to grow your business, is just focusing on the things that are small things, but are impacting your client experience. And so just some final thoughts, just to recap everything that we've gone through, is just retention is more cost effective and it drives long-term growth. So it's a longer term game, but it will be more sustainable over time. Acquisition is essential for growth and visibility. But when you start focusing just on acquisition, it's like that hamster wheel. You just keep circling and trying to get new clients because you're not doing enough to keep the existing ones in. It's like looking at a leaky bucket, right? Is you put more in, but they're more coming out because they're going somewhere else because of the experience, or potentially they have a better offer, better services from a competitor. So it's really looking at what is that balance. So the magic and the key here is to be sustainable, to be a sustainable business, you really need to look at both. So one of the things that I invite you to is book a call so that we could see from your business, because every business is different. Every business is at a different stage. Your clients are all different. You are a different person. So it's really looking at, well, what is that balance? What is that balance for me, for my business, that I need to be able to grow this business?